We are not hustling our way into wealth this year. We are building a rich, soft life on autopilot. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly where your next $100 could go. I'm going to show you exactly step by step how you can get started investing and why this might be the most important lazy decision that you make in 2026. All right, so first things first, you don't need 20 different investments. You don't need 14 different investing apps or websites. You just need a tiny but mighty little squad that has your back. I like to think about my portfolio as my friend group. So we kind of have three main roles. We have the fun local star. We are gonna have the world traveler, and then you're gonna have your calm adult who's maybe a little bit boring, goes to bed by 9 p.m. So let me break down each of these friends for you and how it can simplify building your stock market portfolio. So first off, we have friend one, who was our fun local star, the crazy one. This is the person who always has energy, always has plans, always wants to do something fun, and maybe is a little bit dramatic. This could be the main stock index fund in your country. That could be the S&P 500 for one example. And just to explain really quick what an index fund is, it's essentially a portfolio of stocks or bonds that you're actually buying little bits and pieces of a handful of different companies. So for example, the S&P 500 index fund will essentially invest in the top 500 companies within the US. Think of it of a basket of 100s of each different company rather than just trying to bet on one specific company. Historically, the S&P 500 and various other index funds within the US have good growth over the long term. For example, maybe the last 1 month doesn't look so great, but when you're investing in the stock market, you really do need to think long-term, 5-year, 10-year, etc. And if you expand the view of the S&P 500 over the last 5 years, it's actually up almost 85%. And that's the importance of making sure that we're investing long-term rather than short-term. So that's our fun friend. They have lots of ups and downs, lots of growth, but over time, they are always going to be there for you. But of course, we don't just stay in our hometown, right? So next, let's talk about our world traveler friend. This is the type of friend who is texting you from 3 different time zones each week and invites you to Bali on a whim, which is going to be your global or international fund. The purpose of having this type of fund is that it is going to spread your money across various markets. Think Japan, India, Europe, etc. The reason that this is important is because different economies throughout the world grow at different times. Your home country might be pulling back, but other economies could be booming. One great example of a stock you could invest in here is the Vanguard Total World Stock, which covers over 9,000 companies globally. All right, so now we've got the fun local star, we've got the world traveler, but it kind of feels like your portfolio is only made of the party friends. While your party friends are fun, they can be a little bit exhausting at times, and sometimes you just need a little recharge. So this is where the calm adult comes in. This is the friend who has a really strict budget, they go to bed at 9 p.m., and somehow they always have money for vacation. So what we're talking about here within regards to the stock market is actually bonds. You may have heard of bonds before, but let's talk about it a little bit deeper. So bonds differ from stocks because instead of owning a little piece of the company, bonds you're actually lending money to the government or to other companies, and over time they're essentially paying you back. These belong in your mix because they are significantly lower risk. They have less volatility, so it's going to be a smoother ride, especially if you get emotionally caught up in your money. Now, I know you might be wondering,
do I really need bonds as part of my portfolio? I'm young, I have plenty of time for my money to grow.
And that's definitely true, and we're going to talk about kind of how to split this up in a second. But as you grow, as you age, your need for stability that bonds do provide will grow with you over time. And a quick note on high yield savings versus bonds. Yes, sometimes a high yield savings account looks like it would be a better investment than bonds, but bonds are more part of a long-term investment strategy, whereas I would think about a high yield savings account as kind of like an emergency fund, money that you can tap into on a moment's notice. So now you've met the whole money squad, but the question becomes, how much do I hang out with each one of these friends? So let's go through how to split your money by age. It's a pretty simple rule. I recommend using the decade that you're in as a guide for bonds versus stocks. For example, if you're in your 20s, maybe around 10 to 20% in that calm, stable adult, aka bonds category. Then as you go up per decade, you could add 10%. So if you're in your 30s, maybe 30% in bonds, 40s, 40% in bonds, etc. And just a reminder, if you're in your 40s, that does not mean you're automatically disqualified from investing. It just might mean that your portfolio mix looks a little bit different than somebody in their 20s. So now we know who we're investing in. We know how to split up our spread between stocks and bonds. Next, let's talk about how to actually get started investing in the stock market. So step one is going to be choosing your investing platform. Choosing where you invest is like choosing a gym. I like to work out, so this one's relevant to me, but it's just important to remember that the best gym to sign up for is the one that you're going to actually show up to. You only need one platform to begin, so don't try signing up for 20 different platforms. There are things like brokerage apps, things like Robinhood, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, etc. There are robo-advisors, things like Wealthfront and Betterment. And then of course there are apps in other countries like eToro, Interactive Brokers, Sharesies, and more. A few things that I would strongly consider if you're thinking about investing and putting your money somewhere important. First off, what are the fees? Do they have low fees? Do they have any fees at all? Making sure that it is really easy to use. User experience is super important. It allows fractional shares so that you don't have to buy, one full share of anything. And that lastly, it lets you buy index funds, also known as ETFs, really easily. Once you pick your platform, the rest becomes way easier because now you can actually start building your money squad inside of it. And the next step is where a lot of beginners get stuck. So let me make this super, super easy. So remember the 3 friends that we talked about? You don't need to pick 10 or 20 different stocks, just pick these 3. All right, so platform chosen, funds chosen. Now comes the part that actually builds wealth in the long run. Unfortunately, that 90% of people skip: automating your money. If you only remember one thing from this video, let it be this: wealthy people automate their finances. So how are we gonna do this? First off, we are going to set up a monthly recurring deposit from your bank account. Remember that even $25 or $50 per month adds up significantly over time. Consistency matters so much more than the timing of the market. And what's great about setting up these monthly recurring deposits is that it removes the emotional aspect out of it. You're just continuously adding into something that's going to snowball over time for you. And lastly, one of the most important steps, again, is to stay consistent. Your portfolio will drop at times. Remember how I showed you what the S&P 500 looked like over the last month versus over the last 5 years? There are going to be times where things dip. That's completely normal and you should not freak out. It's important to remember that long-term mindset that you're putting this money in for 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Try not to panic sell anything. Try not to look at the stock market every day. Again, check it maybe once every few months and see how things are growing. Now, I know you might be wondering,
okay, this was super great and all, but now I need an actual tutorial on using one of these platforms and getting things set up.
Well, lucky for you. I personally use Robinhood to make my investments, and I have made an entire Robinhood tutorial to show you how to get completely set up on Robinhood, from things like transferring your first money in, setting up recurring deposits, buying your first stocks, and more. When you pair what you just learned in this video with the actual tutorial, it is even more powerful. Now, if you can stay consistent through the ups and downs of the stock market, I promise your future self will thank you. Once you've put this system in place, the only thing left, honestly, is to just live your life. And by the way, if you want my free first investment game plan, it's a super short mini guide that has things like picking your platform, picking your top 3 funds, how to automate your expenses, and more. Then make sure you check out that freebie down in the description box. If you loved hearing how you can set yourself up for financial success in 2026, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That is what my channel is about, just living your best wealthy life. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.